Good evening, AC Valley, and welcome to the September 13th, 2021 Allegheny-Clarion Valley School Board Workshop. Tonight's meeting will be conducted virtually, and I welcome all school board members, administrators, and members from the public to this evening's meeting. As a friendly reminder, please keep your mic turned off until you're ready to speak. You can unmute your mic or raise your hand if you have comments or questions. Before we get into roll call, I am going to provide the community with an overview of the very latest masking mandate set into motion by the Pennsylvania Department of Health, the AC Valley School District obligations to enforce the mandate, and how the district officials are working to implement the mandate. And I'm sure everybody's read the order of the Acting Secretary of Pennsylvania Department of Health about the face coverings, but I am going to highlight a few areas. Just keep in mind that the coronavirus is a contagious disease. There's been over 1 million cases in the Commonwealth. 28,000 plus have died due to this pandemic. And because of the rise of the Delta variant, increase in disease, hospitalization, and the inability to obtain vaccines for a large part of the vulnerable group, children are more at risk right now. The risk overall to the unvaccinated population is rising. Given this, due to the health crisis at the hospitals and associated deaths, there's more of a concern because of Delta variant. As of August 26th, there's been 23,974 children who have been infected, and that's up to years from 0 to 4 years old. 56,000 between the age groups of 5 and 12, and then 88,000 have been infected between the ages of 12 and 18. Maintaining in-person instruction is imperative for the students' overall ability to grow both socially and mentally. And we understand the importance of it. Adding a multi-layered approach to this helps to keep us in school. The American Academy of Pediatrics, AAP, has strongly recommended masking in schools. Finally, recent studies have shown that mask wearing in schools has contributed to lower levels of COVID-19 transmission among students. The authority is granted to the Secretary of Health pursuant to the Pennsylvania Law, Section 5 of the Disease Prevention and Control Law, 35 PS 521.5, Section 2112, Subpart A. And that's the law that a lot of people get confused of and doesn't believe that the mandate is actually a law. But according to our school solicitor, guidance from the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and the more that we read, this is a law. It is a mandate for the district to implement. Section 1 of this masking order defines face coverings. So we can have the nose and mouth covered with a material, or we can have an alternative to the face covering, which is a plastic shield that goes across the face, covering the forehead and going down to the chin. So we have a variety of options. In addition to that, it outlines who this requirements for, and K through 12 institutions, definitely one of them. Section 2, general masking requirements. Each teacher, child, student, and staff, and visitors attending or visiting a school entity shall wear a face covering within the doors of the school district, regardless of vaccination status. So any kind of event that we have here, as well as the day-to-day operations, face coverings are required. Section 3, exceptions, and this is where it gets a little tricky. Letter A is an exception for when a face covering creates an unsafe condition. Letter B would either cause a medical condition or exacerbate an existing one. Letter C, to confirm somebody's individual identity. Letter D, when working alone or isolated from interaction. Letter E, communicating or seeking communication with somebody who's hearing impaired. Letter F, individuals under 2 years of age, or when the individual is eating, drinking, or playing an instrument. And I'll come back and address letter B here shortly. High intensity aerobic and anaerobic activities in a well-vented area is exempt from masking as well. So our athletic events and high impact physical education class. And then they finish off with letter H of section 3, and they address sports and the events associated with indoor and outdoor activities. Section 4, the school entity's obligation. Subsection A, number 1, require and enforce the requirements of all students, teachers, and staff and visitors to wear a face covering indoor. They had a typo. They went straight to letter or number 3, which is post signs in all the entranceways, which we have. And then letter 4, provide reasonable accommodations for individuals who state they have a medical condition. And again, I'll come back to that as I close. School entities should not enforce face covering requirements when there's an exception under section 3. Restrain from using force or physically removing somebody, and violation to other laws. And then they finish off with section 5, which is really important to us as well. And it is part of the federal mandate that masks are required on public transportation. So what's the school district responsibility? I've heard by some that they'd like for the school district to stand up against this mandate. And quite frankly, it's not the role of the school board, the administration, or the teachers to stand up against it. It's our obligation to implement. We did get legal guidance. Failure to implement and follow the controlled measures under the order subjects each board member, administration, teachers a penalty of not providing this opportunity for disease control and prevention, and that was based off a law in 1955. PDE has served notice to board members who fail to comply to the mandate. There's no indemnification or protection associated with this order. Some school districts, liability insurers are exploring options that will cancel their coverage if school boards vote to override this particular mandate. And violations of the law may negatively affect the workers' compensation claim. So that came as far as part of the advice from the intermediate units. And then I received an email late on Friday from Sherry Smith, who's the acting deputy secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Education. And she states specifically, this order is not a masking optional policy. Any school entity simply permitting a parent sign-off form without evidence that the student has a medical or mental health condition or disability that precludes the student from wearing a face covering is not in compliance of the order. In accordance to section 3 of this order, all alternative face coverings, including a face shield, are to be exhausted. It is recommended that any exception be in accordance with the eligibility under section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 associated with IDEA. So with that being said, the administration is implementing it as follows. We have a doctor's exempt form on the website. We're encouraging parents who wrote parent opt-out letters to have their doctor complete that documentation and send back to us. So as it stands right here, we do have a number of parent requests. We provided these parents with the doctor's note, and our goal moving forward is accordingly. Number one, we can't accept the parent's opt-out form as it stands, but this will automatically trigger what's called a child find process. We'll convey the 504 team and proceed forward. We're providing parents with 5 days to provide the doctor opt-out letters. If we get a doctor to complete the form and return it to us, it will signify that the student does have a medical diagnosis and no further actions required. Number 3, if the parent refuses to send in a doctor note or doesn't want to get a doctor's note, parent request for masking opt-out will then move into the 504 process. And we're preparing to contact these parents at this time, and then that'll institute the child find. While we may be able to put a plan together with a doctor's note, it is more difficult. So if we have nothing from a doctor, we hold a meeting based on the parent's note and the information that we have from district staff. So together, we'll work with the family, we'll work with the parents and the staff here at AC Valley to implement whatever accommodations are necessary for that particular child and that family. So that's just an overview of the mandate, the obligation for the district, and then how we're implementing it. So this time, Tammy, can you please do the roll call?
Carrie Armagost.
Here.
Megan Dreher.
Here.
Jen Fight.
Here.
Diane Page.
Here.
Corey Sherman.
Here.
Lena Southworth.
Here.
Jameen Stump.
Here.
Kelly Terwilliger.
Here.
Mark Vertel.
Thank you, Tammy. Under public participation, we do have a parent and community member, Sherilyn Bartley, who would like to address the school board. And I've contacted Aaron Heil, and he sent Sherilyn out a link. And at this time, I'll open it up for Mrs. Bartley to address the board.
Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are.
Perfect. Okay, so I appreciate the information that you gave, and I just want to take a second because I know I only have 5 minutes, but I just want to take a second and thank all of you. I know you guys are put in a difficult position, and we just really appreciate you doing your best in these difficult times. It's no secret that I am, and I stand behind the My Kid, My Choice, right? Everybody's heard of it. We all kind of have an idea of what that looks like. We truly believe just that. These are our kids, and the decisions on what precautions to take to protect them should be in our hands. We're not here to argue politics. I realize that the science behind it, you can get different information from several different sources, and it's just none of it adds up. But debating on who's right or who's wrong, that's not what I'm here for. The parents should be able to decide if and when a child should have to wear a mask. And this would also cover anything going forward. So it's not just about the mask, right? And it's not just about the parents that don't want their kids to wear a mask, but about the parents that do. Like, it might be our fight right now that we don't want our kids to wear a mask because we don't think that it is right or the safest choice for them. But in the future, it could be something that we don't necessarily agree with, but we are supporting every parent to be able to make the safest decisions for their children. So I'm asking the board members to reconsider your stance on the mask order and bring it to the board on the September 20th meeting, so next Monday. And just keep in mind that we want to put this back in the parents' hands. The parents should be able to decide what is safe and what is the most beneficial course of action for their kids. So I think that we're all frustrated, and I think that we're all overwhelmed. And unfortunately, I've seen people pointing fingers towards, teachers and the school board and all the faculty. And we all know that that's not the case. I know that several faculty members have viewpoints on both sides, and that's what I'm here to support. So we want to put this back in the parents' hands. We want them to feel empowered to be able to make those decisions for their kids. And just like I said, if somebody else were to come up and want to change something for their child because they want to make a decision based on their knowledge and their course of action for protecting their children, I support you too. So if you want your kids to wear a mask, absolutely. If you want your kids vaccinated, vaccinate them. And I'm going to do the research, and I'm going to make those decisions for my kids too. And I just hope and am asking for you all to take that into consideration. And in the future, just keep that My Kid, My Choice mindset for anything else that were to come down the line. One more thing before I go. I did hear about, liabilities and things like that. And obviously I've been trying to research, but trying to stay, not keep it political and not do the back and forth with the science, because you get all kinds of information, but just keeping the My Kid, My Choice mindset. And I keep seeing that, there is sovereign immunity. So that's something else to consider too. And I'm going to email out a copy of some information that I found to each board member. So that way you have all of it before the board meeting on next Monday. And I thank you all for your time, and I really appreciate everything that you're doing. And if I can be of any more support or anything, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherilyn. Moving down through the agenda, we do not have any presentations tonight. And at this time, I'll open it up to any kind of board concerns that we can address. Hearing none, we'll continue down through the consent agenda. Letter A is a discussion related to the conference field trip as presented to you. We have a number of request. The first one coming from Stacy Redding, food service manager. We found a training for new food service directors out in Petan and Harrisburg. They have a variety of topics: pairs, compass, a school nutrition toolbox, direct certification, eligibility determination, verification, product records, meal planning, claiming, procurement, and child nutrition. A whole host of items, not to mention the collaboration that Stacy will be able to do while she's out there. I did speak to her and she's willing to head out. That is a 2-day training in October. Mrs. Logue also submitted a couple of requests, one for the monthly counselor meetings at IU6, and they collaborate and work together to continue to provide the best possible education for our kids. And then Minnie also goes to the FIA financial workshop on a yearly basis. She picks up information and helps support our students as they fill out the financial aid forms as they go to a post-secondary institution. Peggy Plowman's our secondary coordinator, and she attends training at IU6 in Clarion, and she had projected the trainings out for the entire year. They generally go up there about once a month, and she's put in that request. It's very important that we continue to keep Peggy up to date on various changes within that position, because we have to contact and track some of our graduates who've moved on. And then finally, we have Justine White and the Give Club. They put in a request to go to the Allegheny Cemetery in Parker to clean the local veterans' tombstones. And that's an activity they've been doing for quite some time now. And I support all the requests that came in. Letter B, we have a number of substitutes in front of you. We have a host of guest teachers, and then we have a couple college students in front of you this evening. And they're both AC Valley graduates, wonderful young ladies, currently enrolled in one of the state institutions. And according to Act 86 of 2016, we could use college students who obtained at least 60 credits majoring in education and currently enrolled in a post-secondary institution. We can use these college graduates up to 20 days per year. So we're hoping to be able to utilize these gals around the holidays, beginning and end of the school year. Just provides some more opportunities, and something that came from a legislative trip that we took years ago. So we're happy to bring these guest teachers and college students in here. And then we also have a substitute in the cafeteria. And as you're all well aware, we can use substitutes the whole way through. So strongly recommend getting those people on board. Letter C, that's from the AC Valley Family Center, Maria Clark. They're planning on utilizing the elementary cafetorium on November 17th for a November group connection event. And that's just to get the families in here and get everybody interacting together. Letter D, that's a retroactive approval from the AC Valley Cheer Boosters to use the facilities and the elementary cafetorium on August 18th. And then also on September 11th, distribution of the Mum Flower fundraiser. Letter E is a request from Melinda Farrington and the Student Council Group. They'd like to utilize the elementary cafetorium on October 2nd for the annual homecoming dance. And at this time, there's no restrictions that would prevent that dance from happening. But again, if the masking order is still in place, then we got to continue to adhere to that. And then finally, under the consent agenda, we have letter F, and that's the PTO and Julie Myers to hold a book fair. That'll be on Wednesday, September 29th, and they'll be working with Mrs. Sherman to find a location, but that's during the day. The teachers will work in conjunction with Lori and make sure that we rotate students and staff in and out of there in a timely manner. At this time, I'll pause for a moment to see if there's any questions or comments about the consent agenda. Moving down into finance and purchase. Next week, we'll have all the bills in front of you, and we'll go through letter A through E and provide details. And then on page 2, we'll go ahead and pay the bills again next week. Letter F and G. The letter H is the one area that I would like to point out to the school board members. We do have a tuition agreement. In front of you, we do have a student who's outside of the district, and the parents would like to pay a tuition. We worked in conjunction with Andrea, Michelle, and Zach to create this agreement. And we have it broken down into monthly installments. And this family is seeking to move into the district. So this will hopefully be a temporary provision for the family. And the school board and I have been emailing back and forth as far as this particular situation. And I'm not sure if there's any comments right now, or if you just want me to continue to gather more information and share that with the school board and provide updates.
I think if you get more information, David, if it seems like they're going to move in rather quickly, I would think we could possibly waive the tuition agreement. But I think we need something definitely saying that they're moving in October or November or something to that effect. If they're not sure, it could be a whole year, then we may not be able to do that.
Sounds like a plan. I'll continue to grab that information and share it with the school board whenever I get it. Are there any questions or comments under finance and purchase before we move into personnel? Working down through page 2, under personnel, we have a number of employee requests for days off here and there. Most of these employees are part-time. We do have one extended leave. We've been working with that supervisor on that employee being off, and then that person will be back in on October 11th. We also, and that's letter A through E, we also have letter F, that's employee 201, to utilize sick days concurrent with FML leave for taking care of a family member. So that'll be intermittent and utilizing sick days concurrent. Letter G is a letter of resignation from head girls track coach Dave Sherman. And if you read the note, Dave's been coaching track for an awful long time. Dave participated, he was fantastic. You know, as a coach, he's great as a teacher, but now that he moved into the AD position, he's resigning from that particular position that he's held since 1998. We can only hope to find somebody who's dedicated to that program moving forward. Letter H is advertising for that vacancy as well. Letter I, that's a request to have Matt Bish appointed as head junior high football coach at a supplemental salary of $1,667, is recommended by Matt, Brad Dittman, to put on Matt. Letter J is a letter from Crystal Long to be the assistant cross-country coach with a supplemental salary of $619. Crystal's a employee. All the files are in the district office for her. Letter K is to hire Valerie Snyder as the assistant varsity volleyball coach at a supplemental salary of $1,587. She's currently the assistant junior high volleyball coach right now, so all the paperwork's on file. Letter L, we're requesting to approve Matt Erickson. He's a certified school psychologist to help out with some of these 504s that I had referenced at the beginning of the meeting, and to support Anna and Justin throughout this process. Matt's a professor at SRU and then also works with our special education director. Letter M is a request from Russell Carr. He'd like to volunteer for the varsity boys basketball team, and Russell's a wonderful young man, and having him part of the program would be an honor for everybody here, and he'd definitely be a positive influence on our current players. Letter N, very similar. Emma Fox, as I noted earlier, she's an AC Valley graduate, current collegiate cheerleader and track athlete. Emma's doing a lot over at SRU, and she wants to come back over and help out. She'd like to volunteer to be with the cheerleading squad and the track teams for the 21-22 school year. At the top of page 3, Christy Schaefer put in to be a volunteer with the AC Valley Band Boosters and the marching band for the 21-22 school year. And as we finish off personnel, we've had a number of contracts that the negotiation committee, myself and Attorney Kuhar has been working on. We're happy to have these contracts in front of the board, and I appreciate everybody who's been impacted by the contract discussion. It took a little bit longer than what anybody anticipated. In front of you this evening, letter P, we have a contract that has both the school police officer and athletic trainer in there. There may be some changes to the school police officer's contract before it gets voted on next week, but we have a pretty good contract in front of you to cover both of those staff members. Letter Q, we have not received the final comment from Attorney Kuhar. I did reach out to him today and made a request to have that contract in front of the board tomorrow or Wednesday by the latest. Once that contract comes in, we will present it to the school board and hopefully vote on that next Monday. Letter R is the food service director contract, and that's a contract for Stacy Redding moving into that particular position. And then we finish off with letter S, that's the 21-22 meet and discuss contract. And that's been reviewed by the employees and the negotiation committees in front of you this evening. And there's some differences among there, but just to summarize them just very grossly, they're all one-year contracts. We'll be moving into negotiation with professional staff and support staff, and we're trying to keep everybody very similar as far as salary increases as well as benefits. So it's a one-year contract. Generally speaking, it's a 2.5% salary increase, which is aligned with everything else and all other positions at this time. Are there any questions under personnel? I know we covered a lot of items and specific to the contracts, and there's been a lot of people in the negotiation committee. I'm not sure if they can help to answer any kind of questions or provide feedback, but I'll pause for a moment.
David, just a quick question. Did Attorney Kuhar feel that he would be able to have the business manager's contract to us by Wednesday?
I've not heard back from him. So I wish I could tell you yes, but I'll make a phone call tomorrow morning driving into work and touch base with him. So yeah, I'm sure he will. He's
Okay.
Again been busy, but I agree with you 100%. We need to have that back. The board needs to review it. The employee needs to view it and understand where you're coming from, Jim.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Dave.
Sure. Anybody else? Okay, moving forward, down through the instructional services, I've provided the school board with a detailed update as far as the number of students here at AC Valley. Just keep in mind that we have just under 700 school-age students here within the district. And our enrollment's closer to 600 because we have a number of students that are attending IU classrooms. We have a number of students attending AC Valley cyber service program as well as outside service, cyber service programs, and homeschool as well. So I'm going to provide the school board with a detailed analysis each month as far as the students. Our goal is to have as many students here face-to-face as we possibly can. We totally feel that face-to-face instruction is most beneficial for the students. We have an absolutely wonderful teaching staff, and we need our students in front of our teachers. And I'll continue to provide updates with that. So in October, Michelle will be ready, and the two of us will share that responsibility. Letter B, that's a request to terminate the cooperative sponsorship of sport agreement with Karn City Varsity Boys and Girls Soccer. We've had that for a couple of years now. Karn City's in agreement. At the end of the season, we'll both approve it. It'll be terminated, and then we'll have options to seek other co-ops or not. And then Karn City, I believe with the number of students that we have here at AC Valley, they'll drop division. So it was a wonderful co-op while it lasted, but it's time to move on from that. And then letter C, that's a discussion related to the 21-22 senior projects and senior projects moving forward. So this time I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. Jordan to provide more information.
Thank you, David. The crux of the discussion regarding senior projects is simply to ask the board to make a decision for this year's seniors as to whether or not they will be required as per district policy to complete a senior project this year. The issues and difficulties are understandable for these students, being that there are a lot of restrictions still in place with COVID, and the danger or the the opportunities that are lacking in regard to COVID restrictions as far as being able to job shadow or go see or visit colleges, or even do community service in some instances. A number of students have expressed a lot of apprehension at trying to get that senior project completed. We normally do that at the very beginning of December. And currently the administration at the high school just feels that, at least as far as presenting at the beginning of December, that this is going to be very, very difficult for these students. Talking to a number of the students, none of them have really put forth the hours that are required for a regular senior project. I will be discussing with the board our plan at the high school for the next couple of years coming up. That would be the juniors and the sophomores coming up, and revamping the senior project and easing it back into the full version of what we have always known as the senior project. But at this time, this decision coming up for this board meeting is simply, are we going to require the students, the seniors of this year, to complete a senior project? Thank you, David.
Are there any thoughts from the school board members at this time? Just keep in mind that we added the additional community service and job shadowing here at AC Valley just because we've seen the benefit of it. That's not a requirement through the state.
I definitely think that there needs to be consideration for the seniors, seeing as that, you know, we haven't had senior projects now for 2 years. So I'm assuming that they haven't done a lot of it. There's not been a lot discussed in terms of, there hasn't been a lot in terms of, discussion with them from administration, just because of everything that we've been going through. So, you know, I'm fine. I definitely want to hear the, what the plan is. Thank you. What the plan is moving forward. But I would be all right for this year with the seniors not doing that.
Thanks, Jen. And Bill will present a detailed plan at the voting meeting next week. He'll go into his plan for not only this year, but phasing it back in for the next couple of years. So thank you for your input on that.
David, I just had a question, and Bill can answer this later, but does that play into our Chapter 339 requirements at all?
It generally does, but we, through Mrs. Love, we meet a lot of those requirements for Project 339. The senior project really is a way of pulling all of those things together and basically presenting that to the administration and to the faculty as evidence, the evidence that they've collected over the years. But
okay, so we'll still have the stuff we need without doing the senior project.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good question, Kelly. And for those of you who don't know what 339 is, that's just a college career readiness. We continue to compile artifacts from kindergarten up till 12th grade, and the school counselors do an absolutely wonderful job with that piece on it. So thanks, Kelly, for your question. Moving on down through instructional services, letter D, in front of the school board this evening is the organizational chart that I update each year. Tammy and I went into great detail with that to ensure that we're accurate with the information that's in front of you. That'll provide you with an insight as far as different departments and how we have it staffed. We utilize that for the audit, and is great for Andrea to have that in the business office as well. So if you get time to look through, and if you have any questions or comments on that, feel free to reach out to me. Moving down through, we don't have any policies in front of you this evening. We've updated a number of policies, and there's nothing coming out from PSBA currently. Facilities, Mark will be with us next Monday to provide an update. And then in front of you this evening, we have a whole host of contracts. And I've talked to Lori earlier, and she's going to provide information about the 2021 bus contracts, career center runs, as well as the van contracts. So Lori, at this time.
Thanks, David. So last year, and the end of 2020, there was a lot of changes to how we had to pay contractors for transportation because of the shutdowns. And we had to make a lot of decisions because obviously prior to March of 2020, we hadn't had anything like that before. So in doing the contracts for this year, I worked with Zach Shekel, and Jody and I both were communicating with him to get some advice on how to put into the contracts language that would help us if and when those situations arise again. So there are 3 contracts that would be affected. Extracurricular contracts didn't change because they were already worded that they were paid as they happen. So if they don't happen, there's no pay. I'll start with the bus contractors, and first with the Career Center contract. And these were, I think Tammy probably gave you copies of these. So I'll just go over the parts where we've made changes. In the Career Center contract, it is different from the regular bus contracts in that it is paid a daily rate of $125 per day versus the formula we use for regular bus routes. But what we wanted to stipulate was when the contractor was paid versus when they weren't. So in that contract, behind the computation page, number 2 in the agreement, instead of stating a sum for the year that the contractor would be paid, we just indicated that it's $125 each day that the contractor transports pupils. And the contractor shall only be entitled to payment under the agreement for days the contractor transports school pupils to the Career Center. So that part is now in writing in the contract. And we did indicate if there's any change to the sum, the parties would agree to it in writing. Number 3 under there also acknowledges that the computation form for pupil transportation services, which is the front page where we do all of the figuring, is always attached to the contract, but it serves as an example of the computation of payments and is not a guarantee of payment and is not a part of the actual agreement. And he made that change. He suggested we make that change in the regular routes as well. So I'll move to the regular route changes. Does anybody have any questions about the Career Center change? Okay, so in the regular routes, also on first page of the agreement, under number 2, we always put the total sum that we compute on the computation form, but then he suggested that we add 177 school days at a rate of whatever it would be per day that they transport said pupils. And again, if there's a change in any of the sums, we would agree in writing with the contractors. Under number 3 is where we address the COVID closures. So that in the event that the school is due to COVID or any other unforeseen reasons, like the water shutdowns that we had and such, where regular routes would not be running. We added the piece about contractors being called in to transport meals, supplies to students, those kinds of things along their regular routes. And then under number 4 is again that piece about the computation form for pupil transportation being an example and not part of the agreement. And that was the major change to the regular bus routes. Are there any questions about that? Okay, and the last one was the vans, which were a little bit more difficult because they are a very different animal in terms of transportation. We do contract them within the 177 days of school to assist with transportation to AC Valley, to some of our placement schools, for the Amish transportation, for Faith Christian Academy. So there's all kinds of different things that happen within there. But we also transport some students in the summer for various reasons for summer school purposes. So the 177 days didn't quite work in the van contracts because we have some van contractors that actually transport more days than that due to their summer work. So Zach's suggestion was that we, in number 3 under the van contracts, that we address the 177 days of school and that our agreement is to pay them in that 177 days, the usual rate of $1.56 per mile. But in the event of closures for any of the reasons, COVID or whatever, we would agree to pay the contractor for the days school is not in session or in person up to the scheduled 177 days. And that we would decide that pay based on, let me read it so I make sure I get it right. The contractor's rate of pay for days when the contractor is not transporting school pupils because school is not in session or in person shall be based upon the average daily rate of pay of the contractor for the 5 previous days school was in person. So if school is not in session or in person for any reason, that's how Jody would decide what we were paying them in the time that we were off. And again, we added the piece about the contractors agreeing to transport meals or supplies or whatever we might need them to students while we are in a shutdown situation. We also indicated that the paragraph does not apply to snow days that will be made up as regular in-person school days, or to the summer vacation time periods when school is not scheduled to be in session. And then number 4 under there addresses that summer vacation that the contractor shall be paid based upon the daily mileage rate or the per mile rate of 156 per mile for any work outside of the 177 days, for instance, summer vacation. And I do see I missed one thing on the Career Center contract. Rather than saying the total number of days was 173, because that's how many days in a 177-day calendar that we go to the Career Center. We added the word that the maximum would be 173 days to indicate that there could be a lesser number of days if we were shut down. And I believe that is all the changes. So does anybody have any questions about the changes?
No, I think Lori clearly delineates now what we're paying and when we're paying. So I appreciate you doing that.
Sure.
And just
Makes
keep
it
in
more
mind that
for everyone.
we were still working on the van contract, so they'll be formally in front of you for Monday. We just have the bus contracts done for the workshop, but Lori just went ahead and alluded to some of the changes in the band contracts as well. So Lori and Jody has been putting a lot of work into it, so thanks to both of them.
Have the drivers seen these yet? Are they okay with everything we're talking about? Do we know? Or I shouldn't say.
They've not seen them. They don't sign them until they're approved at the board and signed by you, by David and the board.
Okay.
But I have been keeping them in the loop, that when we started the year, I let them know that we were making those changes to the contract.
That's what I meant. And I didn't mean the drivers, I meant the contractors. So they're kind of aware of what's. Okay,
yeah,
thank
actually,
you.
Before school started, Jody and I met individually with each contractor, van and bus, and, kind of talked about those things during that. And when we did have this brief shutdown, and had to deliver lunches for a day, there were no issues. We used our bus and vans and we got the lunches delivered and everything went smoothly.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Lori. And moving down into miscellaneous, we don't necessarily have any reports this evening. We could come back into those reports during the voting meeting on next Monday. And we don't have anything under old business. Is there any new business that the school board members would like to bring up at this time? Hearing none?
Sorry,
Jen,
David.
go ahead. Not a problem.
I just wanted to thank Mrs. Bartley for her participation tonight. I know that this is a hot topic at this particular point. There's lots of people on both sides of this, and I didn't want the meeting to end. And the fact that school board members, we talk about we talk about things, and my feeling at this particular point is that as a board member, and this is irrelevant of my personal opinions on this, I don't feel that as board members, that we can really take any action to overturn or that's been put out about the masking. So, I've had had discussion, I just, how we as board members can do that. And the other piece is that, we spend a lot of time talking about, keeping our kids safe and healthy. And, that's our goal. We want to educate them, but they have to be safe and healthy in order for us to do that. So I know there's a lot of discussion out there. So I just wanted to acknowledge to Mrs. Bartley that we were not going to close this meeting without at least acknowledging her participation. I'm happy to put my own, just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, John. We do appreciate that. And the board has spent a lot of time on it. We've all had to learn a great deal in a very short amount of time. And I truly believe the mandate was not clearly written, and it caused a lot of confusion and frustration amongst our community members, which our number one goal is to educate our kids. That's it. That's what we want to do. We want to get back into it just as much as the parents do. So please bear with us. We'll do what we can to stay in face-to-face instruction. And I do appreciate the community, school board members, and all the staff at AC Valley. The teachers are putting their heart and soul into education, and I can't thank them enough. The other supporting staff that we have within the district are all troopers. Whether we agree or disagree with masking, we're showing up every day, we're adhering to the expectations, and we're educating our students like we know how to. So thanks to the AC Valley community. Okay, if there's nothing else at this time, we'll go ahead and close the meeting. And just keep in mind that we will be face-to-face for the voting meeting next Monday at 6 o'clock. I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Good night.
Night.